Today's video is about why we need more women inventors. So why is it important for us to involve women in the innovation process? And why is it not only good for these women inventors, future women inventors, but also for society as a whole? So who invents matters. So for example, when it comes to women's heart and heart disease, knowing the difference was very, very important when detecting heart disease. The earlier that you can detect someone may be developing these symptoms, the better. But what happened was there was a gap in knowledge about how heart disease presents in women because the research up until the 1990s was focused primarily on men. Women were underrepresented in clinical trials, and we didn't see a change in this until there were more women in the biomedical field, where women were becoming more involved in the clinical trials when it came to detecting heart disease. And because of there were more women in the field and there were more women in the clinical trials, they were able to determine the reason why they were not detecting heart disease in women early on compared to men was that the symptoms that women display for heart disease is much different than it is for men. And this is super fascinating because if it wasn't for these women scientists who were involved in these women in getting these women in these clinical trials and just more women scientists who were involved in heart disease, we wouldn't know this. And this has really helped with diagnosing women who have heart disease early on to prevent heart attacks. And there's recent research that has found that inventions by women are more likely to focus on the health needs of women. And this is common with innovation in general. People tend to invent or want to study something that impacts them personally or the people that are around them. So if we look at, we've made a lot of progress in terms of women in STEM, and we know that STEM degrees are very high paying jobs, especially in the world of AI and technology and how things are changing. If you major in something with science, technology, engineering, or math, and even the arts, you have a great longevity for a great career. So we're doing well if you can see that women in science and engineering workforce, we're about 28%, and this is from the National Science Foundation and the National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics. And then we see for engineering fields, the share of women in the workforce is about 15.5%. So that is pretty well if we compare these numbers 30 years from now. However, if we look at the left-hand side, look at this chart here, according to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, women are still under 20% of inventors on an annual basis on average. And if we look at the total U.S. patents, only 12.8% of these patents have a women inventor listed on them. So, although we see the number of women in science and engineering workforce increase, there is still this gap with the amount of women inventors, which is hindering scientific progress. And ideally, what we would like to see is we see that 28% of the workforce in science and engineering are women. Ideally, we would like it to be on an annual basis. We see about 28% of women being inventors as well. And there's a lot of discussion kind of about, the gaps in invention rates and the gaps in scientific discovery when it dealing with things that impacts women compared to men, and how this gap is impacting economic growth, which is good for everyone because it creates jobs, improves our quality of life, and there will just be more opportunity for everyone. But what's something that isn't as documented in it's starting to be. And next week, I'm going to dive into an experiment that I ran with some researchers that got published, an article that was published based off research that we did to see, okay, what can we do to motivate more women who have the skill set to invent or to pursue entrepreneurship? What can we do to encourage them to show interest in participating and learning more about entrepreneurship and innovation? And what researchers have kind of discovered is that there are different reasons why people engage and try to pursue an invention or entrepreneurship. And there's this one study from 2022 where they surveyed US female academics who were involved in innovation to see what their purpose was. And over one point, from a Likert scale from 0 to 5, we see that most of the women inventors were really interested in pursuing innovation to seek real world application of their research, university policy, meaning that they had the support to pursue this innovation, and also to seek funding. There's a lot of funding opportunities with this as well. But we see that what outscored all of these kind of benefits that are, would motivate anyone, right? It's university. It's encouraged by the university you work at. You can get funding opportunities if you're pursuing innovation, but seeking real world application of the research that they're doing in their lab, what they're teaching their students, is the number one reason for why women wanted to engage in the innovation ecosystem based off of this study. And this is just a precursor of what I'm going to go into next week, where I'm going to talk about a study that actually I ran, an experiment that I ran, where we had positive effects, where women were engaging more in pursuing, showing interest in pursuing real world application of their research. And I want to just go over the importance of why we need more women inventors. There is a loss of talent. If there are, for various reasons, why we're not seeing the share of women inventors rise, it actually impacts everyone because that's slower economic growth. And in today's world, we're competing against talent globally. And if we want to maintain our quality of life that we see in the United States, and if other nations want to maintain their quality of life or improve their quality of life for society and have job creation for the years to come, you would like to involve something very simple as involving more women in the innovation process who have the skill set and the capabilities to do so. It shouldn't be that we see the number of women in science and engineering in the workforce rise, but the women invention rate is almost 15% percentage points lower than the women who are participating in the science and engineering workforce and who are having the STEM fields. Thank you.